Hi, so welcome everyone to the Midlife Creation question and answer session for this week. There are a couple of you on that we've been chatting to now, and then if anyone else comes on, they can just join straight in. So what I want to talk about today, it's going to be a little bit different today. I'm not going to have quite the same question and answer session as a snapshot of part of a presentation that I'm going to be doing in Malaysia later on, on Monday next week, that really kind of emphasizes the role that life phases play in your life, because we focus quite a lot on some other elements in terms of how you fit into your career and your work, but you do tend to gloss over a little bit the role that where you're at in the stage of life is, and how fundamentally important, probably the most important single aspect of your progression through your career. So the presentation, the keynote that I'm giving on Monday is for a Women in Leadership conference in Kuala Lumpur. They want me to talk about visionary leadership. And the normal place to go in that conversation is, this is what you can do, and this is how you can distinguish a vision for yourself for the future, and this is how you can help bring other people along with you. And I'm going to be touching on some of those things in the presentation around how to create a vision in a team so that everybody in the team actually holds the same sense of the future that they're living into, and how powerfully that can bring a group of people into operating effectively together. But I am going to bring in life phases as well, because it's just so fundamental, and it's not really talked about a great deal. And for us and our purposes, it'll give us an insight into the role that it plays in our life now and into the future, and possibly in the past as well. So this is kind of how this is how I see it. We think that it's kind of got it back to front. We often think that your personality is the key determinant for how you interact with the world around you. We do personality testing. You're the LGBTQ personality, there are a whole bunch of different technologies that give you access to what kind of personality you are. And that does have some power in relation to how you meet the world, how you deal with situations that come to you, and who you're going to be in the face of both challenges and opportunities. But from my perspective, that's probably the least important of the key characteristics that determine how you are when dealing with change, or dealing with the issues that you have to deal with in your work and your life, how you meet the world around you. Because underneath personality is something far more fundamental, which is a conception that goes back several thousand years to the ancient Greeks. Hippocrates was talking about this in probably around 800 BC, or between 800 and 400 BC, and that is your temperament. And if your personality is unique to you, which it is, no one has one like you, just like no snowflake is the same. Your temperament isn't actually quite the same. It is something that is consistent across other people as well as you. There are only essentially 4 of them, and they determine to a large extent how each of those 4 kinds of people relate to the world around them, more profoundly than personality. So, give you an example. If you had a friend who I have a son, for example, who when he gets upset, he gets angry very quickly. He's 8 years old, and he'll just crack it. You can't tell me what to do. And as frustrating as it is that he reacts that way, if one day he stopped reacting like that and just was really calm and quiet about something he didn't like, we would get worried. And if that went on for a couple of days, we'd probably take him to the doctor to see that he was okay. And in fact, that has happened. He got very calm and quiet once, and turns out he had a fever and he wasn't well, and once he got better, he was back to his normal fiery self. So now that's consistent with him, and my wife has a similar temperament, and there are quite a lot of people around that have a temperament that meets the world in a very choleric, kind of energetic way. Then there are other kinds of people who meet the world in other kinds of ways. Some people will meet it forcefully, some people will meet it strategically, some people will meet it carefully, some people will observe it. And these are consistent across categories of people, beyond personality. Now, in the conference, I'm going to talk about temperaments and a role it plays in both understanding what kind of team you want to create in any given opportunity, any given situation, but also how to communicate effectively with people, because the way they meet the world is just the way they meet the world, and you're meeting it your way, and you have to kind of be able to see their perspective as well as your own. And it's irrelevant. Your personality is not relevant. But there's even a deeper element or quality that helps us to understand how others and we meet to and react to the world, and that is the phase of life that you're in, which is obviously what we're talking about in this program, although we will touch on temperaments for those of you that are not into the third quarter of the program yet. So the phase of life is critical. It determines where you're at in your life and what lessons you're trying to learn, and the theme and the flavor. But it also has a very particular relationship with temperaments, in that different phases of life actually emphasize a particular temperament. So in the early years of your life, you have what is called a sanguine temperament. Even if your intrinsic temperament is different, even if you're like my son and you're quite choleric and quite energetic, younger kids are generally sanguine. They're focused on the world around them. They're kind of flighty. They're up in the clouds. They're looking at lots of stuff. And as they grow older, they become more phlegmatic into your 30s and 40s, where you're more steady and calm and consistent and delivery focused. And then in your 50s and 60s, generally there's an emphasis on what they call the melancholic phases, which is where you're a lot more wise, introverted, able to relate more calmly with people. And this continues through your life as each phase of life emphasizes a particular temperament. So you've got your own personality at the top of the pyramid up there. You've got your temperament, which is consistent across categories of people. Now, to be really clear, everybody shows an element of all four temperaments, but one is emphasized by the phase of life that you're in at any one given time. So underneath all of the others, your phase of life actually plays the most important role of all other characteristics when it comes to both your work and your life, managing change, leading teams, the whole lot. And yet it really isn't explored in a great deal of depth. So we're just going to go into that a little bit now and look at how that would impact your life and your career and people around you. So this model, you remember, obviously, we've all dealt with this before. If I can just get my little pen to work. Here we go. So you start young and physically inept, spiritually close to the cosmos, and it comes into the middle half of life. So this first part of your life is where you're most sanguine. And here you're at your most phlegmatic, and then here you become more melancholic, and that's just kind of the phases of your life as you slowly move back out to giving back into the world. Now, in a career sense, this has a really direct correlation to how your career evolves, because in the first half you learn a great deal about what there is to understand about your life and your preferences and what you like and what you don't like. And then as you reach the middle part of your life, you need to be able to start giving that back to people. And those people that don't make that transition that we've been talking about, of moving their focus from expansion and growth in the material plane into giving back in the spiritual, tend to become tyrants, like this little lady here, who try to control their environment and control the people around them, and are terrified that people are going to usurp them, take their position, take their authority. They can do really crazy things like, you know, turning up 5 minutes before the day starts with all the work they did over the weekend and plonking it on the desk so everybody knows, and saying something like, you know, I did all this work over the weekend. I hope you guys are satisfied, you who went off and had fun. Or they get very positional and start to protect their authority, or they start to impose their authority on other people. So you can see people kind of sliding into this path, oopsies, as they go. If they stick to that, they become more and more focused on protecting what they've got and protecting their authority and their position, and getting more and more scared, because on that path, of course, younger people have more energy and more growth than older people do. But if they make that shift up into the giving career and finding ways to mentor and support and help other people, then you get a leader who is more interested in supporting other people, and you get a magnanimous leader who is a supporter and holding the space for other people to grow. And that's obviously what we all want. But a lot of the time we do a lot of focus on training people in how to become that, without recognizing that fundamentally what has to happen is that you need to be able to make that transition in your own life from a focus on material results to a focus on spiritual results. And that's how you get the magnanimous leader. And it starts internally in the leader. And it's associated with the phase of life that you're in, and whether you're fulfilling on your leitmotif in that stage of your life or not. Because if you're not, if you're still down here, then all you've got is protecting yourself. So we see this in our work all the time. You know, the tyrannical leader or the magnanimous supportive one. And we wonder what we can do about it. I mean, the real work that has to be done is for people to look at what it takes to make that transition from focus on material to a focus on spiritual. So that's one area where it really impacts. The other is that every age, you see, has its own superpower, right? Its own strength that is unique to that particular age. And we need to be able to tailor workloads and focus to suit the age. And they're not all the same. Now, intrinsically, we know this is true, but specifically, what are they? Well, in your 20s, and I think the 20s has been cut off the edge here for some reason, your superpower is energy, it's enthusiasm, it's optimism. So what you really want is, in that kind of a role, is sales or delivery or you know, hard work, lots and lots and lots of focused effort. It's the perfect place to put young people, where they're going to have to work very hard and expended a great deal of energy in essentially gathering experiences. Experiences of people, experiences of situations, experiences of companies. That's really the primary function of somebody in their 20s. And if you give them that, you'll be fulfilling on what they need as a person, but you'll also be getting the best out of them. They also obviously need a lot of guidance. And they may not recognize it or appreciate it, but that is actually something you need to be able to do. And all the different ages, really, from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, need a lot of personal development as they make that shift, or up towards the middle of the arc and then on towards the spiritual curve and away from the material. People in their 30s, their superpower is that they are consistent and they're focused and they're very reliable. They are deeply committed to organizing the world. And that's what the 30s is about. You have the experience that you can organize your world in such a way that you can produce any kinds of results that you wish. So you're managing situations and environments. And in your 30s, and I remember, I mean, that's just how the world looks. You may not even recognize this as I say it, but that shifts as you get older and you look back on it and go, oh, I see. My relationship with the world was that I could find a structure, find a process, find a way of managing a situation to produce whatever kind of result that I was looking for. And this is the time we build families, buy houses, early, build a life. And what you need is a thing to grow or a thing to develop. So this is the time to put people in their 30s into a managerial role and give them clear outcomes and say to them, this is what you need to deliver. Go off and find a way to deliver it. Not so much the kind of hard grunt work, although they've obviously got a lot of energy, but something they can build. Whereas in your 20s, you're not really into building anything. You're just into trying stuff. Then in your 40s, it's an area we struggle with a lot in the corporate world and in government. In fact, generally we struggle with it because the superpower is a little less discernible than it is in the first two phases here, where it's very energy and focused. In this phase, it's the involution of your life, where you reach the plateau and you need to look in towards yourself and in towards your past and get a real understanding of who you really are. It's the most creative phase. It's the phase where you get to start to pull new things out and create new things from nothing. So the optimal roles for people in this are research and development. It really is the place to put people in their 40s, or new initiatives. You put someone in their 40s at the head of an agency with some people in their 30s who are going to be managing the growth of this agency, with a bunch of people in their 20s to do the hard yakka, and you've got a pretty good structure going on there, because the people in their 40s are going to be grappling with themselves and looking into themselves and being creative. So they need space to do that. And this is something that we don't notice a lot, is they actually need a lot of space to be creative, which is strange because in your 30s, you couldn't imagine needing that much space. I mean, you'd like it, but you didn't need it. So you don't generally create it for yourself in your 40s. So we need to put the effort into creating those environments for them. Now, in your 50s, you get that reawakening, experience, energy, purpose. So the optimal role for someone in their 50s is to direct an agency or an enterprise and to kind of make strategic directions and pathways for things. That's kind of obvious. And, almost all the great politicians and lawyers and leading lights in our societies really hit their straps at this time. They went through their 40s and they came out in their 50s knowing who they were, and they started making bold statements and creating, kind of creating or delivering on the things that they created in their 40s. So this is what they need to be able to do, is express their passion, to actually get it out there into the world. And again, personal development is important because this is where you start getting the magnanimous or leader or the tyrant. And you start to see whether the work in the earlier years is going to pay off, because in the 50s, that starts to become obvious. As the decline sets in, they either step up and out and start looking out towards the world and other people and expressing their passions, or inwards and defending their past. Then the 60s is a beautiful phase where you really start to get that sense of empathy and grace and wisdom that you can bring to an enterprise into your life. And again, this is kind of moving up the spiritual path, and optimal roles are governance roles, obviously, and roles where you're a mentor or where you can support other people to grow. So what they need is opportunities to support and develop other people, and you need to provide them if they can't find them for themselves. My wife's father used to bemoan to me regularly that he was not in a position to pass on his knowledge. And he found it a deeply conflicting experience because nobody wanted to learn from him. He didn't have any opportunities to teach 60 years of farming knowledge that he had to somebody. And he didn't know how to go out and find the people to do that for. So we need to do that for them sometimes, provide opportunities for them to teach other people what they've learned. At this point, professional development is not actually so important. They've got what they've got, and they've got an enormous amount to give back. They need space to do that, but professional development becomes less important. Personal development stays important. And then your 70s, what you bring is honesty and freedom and joy to the world. And this is your elder statesman, your elder stateswoman. They need platforms, opportunities to share their wisdom. And again, personal development is still important. My eldest client is 71. She reckons that she's having a midlife crisis and is preparing for the last 30 years of her life. So personal development never finishes, but as you can see, each phase of your life has a different superpower and a different role, and they need different things. And if you want to be able to empower people in your enterprise, then you need to know how to both maximize the superpower that they've got, but also provide them with what they need. And in a lot of ways, it's more important than their personality, and it's more important than their temperament. Oh, that's the last page of the presentation. So, so that's what I wanted to kind of leave you guys with, this last piece here, really, that maybe your life phase plays a bigger role in your team and your environment than you would think. And it's a critical stage of understanding your team, and especially if you want to create any kind of change into the future, then you need to understand personality is really just touching the top. It's actually not going to give you a great deal of juice to understand how people meet the world at the personality level. Even if those technologies, personality testing work, and I have my questions, it doesn't actually give you a deeper understanding of how human beings actually meet the world around them. It does give you the experience that you're unique and different, but that's actually not maybe as true as we like to think it is. So understanding temperaments and understanding life phases is an extraordinarily powerful way of getting in touch with how it is that human beings meet the world around them. Okay, so I hope this has been of value to you. I'm going to take some questions and just sign off on this part of it now. So I'm going to stop the recording and then take a couple of questions. Hang on a moment.